Elias Mercer stood in the middle of the galactic welcome station and tried not to look like a human who had never been on a station the size of a small city before. The ceiling was so high that it felt like the sky, except the sky was made of glass panels and slow-moving lights. Ships drifted behind those panels like quiet fish in a deep sea. The air smelled clean and sharp, with a hint of something like rain on metal. He reminded himself he belonged here. His badge said, Human Cultural Liaison Temporary Envoy. It was a fancy label for a simple job. Smile. Listen. Don't offend anyone, don't touch anything glowing. Try not to become the first human story the galaxy told as a warning. Elias adjusted his collar. The fabric was new and still stiff. It didn't feel like him. He had been chosen because he was good with people, which was a polite way of saying he could talk without sounding like he wanted to start an argument. He could make strangers relax. He could tell jokes at the right time. Usually. The translator implant behind his left ear hummed softly. It was supposed to take alien speech and turn it into basic English in his mind, and take his words and translate them into whatever the other person understood. It also carried the tiny emotional layer that made meaning smoother. At least, that was what the technicians said. Just be natural, they told him. Natural was hard when every wall had moving symbols and every hallway had beings with limbs he couldn't count quickly. Across the open hall, a crowd gathered near a stage-like platform. Floating signs changed colors as different species arrived. A diplomatic event was about to begin. It wasn't a speech exactly. It was more like a greeting ritual. The station did this whenever a new member world joined the wider network, and Earth had only recently been allowed here. Elias watched as a cluster of tall beings with soft, drifting robes moved in a slow line. Their faces were hidden behind shimmering veils. Beside them, a small wheeled creature rolled forward with a gentle clicking sound, and a few people stepped aside politely. Nobody seemed afraid. It was all calm, careful, and a little too formal. Elias took a breath. He was not here to be impressive. He was here to be steady. A station attendant approached him. The attendant was a slender being with skin like pale stone and eyes that reflected light like polished glass. It held a tablet with symbols that shifted as it looked at him. Human Mercer, the attendant said, and Elias heard the words in his own language through the implant. The tone was smooth, respectful. You are requested at the Central Exchange Ring. Elias nodded quickly. Requested by who? The attendant tilted its head slightly. Ambassador Celari of the Lyrian Concord. Elias had heard the name in briefings. The Lyrians were known for art and diplomacy. They were also known for being careful about emotions. Humans were warned not to be too loud or too intense. It could be taken as rude. Elias swallowed. Right, of course. He followed the attendant through the hall, trying not to stare at anyone. The floor under his shoes felt like a soft solid, almost like rubber but smooth like glass. As he walked, the station's quiet noises wrapped around him. Distant announcements, soft humming, gentle footsteps, and the occasional chime from a passing drone. They entered a circular space with seats arranged like petals. In the center was a low table with a calm blue light under its surface. A few beings sat around the ring, speaking in low tones. They stopped when Elias arrived, and then he saw her. Ambassador Celari sat near the table, her posture relaxed but alert. She was not tall like some species, but she carried a kind of still confidence that made the air feel organized around her. Her skin was a warm shade of copper with faint patterns that looked like fine paint brushed across her cheekbones. Her hair, or something like hair, fell in dark waves, but it shimmered with a soft color shift, like a starfield seen through oil. Her eyes were large and clear, and when she looked at Elias, he felt like she was seeing him fully, not just as a human, not just as an envoy, but as a person who had a whole private life inside. Elias forgot his careful plan for 2 full seconds. Then his nervous mind did what it always did when it was cornered. It tried to be funny. He smiled, stepped forward, and said, So you're the famous Ambassador Celari. I was expecting someone less intimidating. It was a safe joke, he thought. A compliment hidden inside a friendly line. Celari's mouth curved into a small smile, controlled and bright. Then she replied, calm as if they were discussing weather. I know you think I'm beautiful. The words landed like a dropped glass. The other delegates around the ring went still, not frozen in fear, more like someone had pressed pause. A few pairs of eyes shifted toward Elias. The attendant near the entrance stiffened. Elias felt heat rush into his face. What? No, I mean. He looked around, confused. I didn't say that. Silari's smile did not fade. In fact, it warmed slightly, like a lamp turning brighter. You did not say the word, but you expressed the meaning. Elias touched the area behind his ear as if he could adjust the implant with his fingers. My translator, maybe it messed up. I was trying to say you're important. Not, I mean, you are important. And, you look very official. He wanted to disappear into the floor. Silari tilted her head, studying him with calm curiosity. Your species is newly implanted with the standard device, correct? Yes, Elias said, voice tight. Very standard, very reliable. A faint ripple moved through the patterns on her cheeks, like a subtle change in light. Elias wasn't sure if it was a blush or just a reaction. It is translating more than your words, she said gently. One of the other delegates spoke, their voice layered like several notes at once. Humans project strongly. Another delegate, a small being with floating rings around its torso, made a soft, humming sound. They do not hide. Elias felt his stomach tighten. The briefings never mentioned this. He had been told humans were emotional, yes, but not that they were broadcast towers. He forced a shaky laugh. Okay, well, that's good to know. Sorry. I didn't mean to, announce anything. Silari lifted a hand slightly, palm open, a gesture that seemed to calm the room. There is no offense, she said. It is unusual, but not unpleasant. Elias exhaled slowly. Thank you, I'm still learning how all this works. Silari's eyes held his. That is why I requested you, she said. The humans have been described to us as a species that cannot help but reveal its inner state. It was difficult to believe. Elias managed a small smile. We try, sometimes. The delegates around the ring started moving again, the paused moment releasing. But the attention stayed. Elias felt like he had become a living example in someone's lesson. Silari gestured toward an empty seat across from her. Sit with me, human Mercer. Speak as you normally do. Elias hesitated, then sat. The seat shaped itself to his body, softly supportive. The table's blue light reflected in Silari's eyes. A small drone floated nearby, projecting soft symbols into the air. Elias recognized them as recording markers. Great. This was being documented. Silari leaned slightly forward. When you looked at me, your expression formed quickly. Then you attempted humor, but beneath your words was a very clear signal. Elias blinked. Signal? Yes, Silari said. Aesthetic appreciation, warmth, interest. You did not intend to share it, but you did. Elias tried to wrap his mind around it. So, you can read minds? Silari shook her head once, clean and firm. No, minds are complex, but emotional resonance is not hidden for your species. Elias looked down at his hands. His fingers were fidgeting. He forced them still. I didn't know humans did that. I mean, we keep things private all the time. Silari's smile softened again, and for the first time she looked less like a distant diplomat and more like someone amused by a small puzzle. You believe you are private because your words can conceal, but your inner tone is loud. A delegate across the ring made a quiet sound that the translator turned into words. Like singing without knowing. Elias let out a breathy laugh. That sounds like a nightmare. Silari's eyes widened slightly and the patterns on her cheeks shifted again. Is it? She asked. To be known without effort? Elias thought about that. He thought about humans on Earth, hiding fear behind smiles, hiding pain behind jokes, hiding love behind careful distance. He thought about how many times people didn't say what they meant, even when they wanted to. It depends, he said honestly. Sometimes it would be nice, sometimes it would be too much. Silari nodded slowly, as if he had confirmed a theory. For many cultures here, she said, direct emotional projection is considered rude. It can overwhelm, it can pressure, it can manipulate without intent. Elias' chest tightened. Oh, so humans could cause problems just by existing. The delegate with the layered voice said, yes. Elias' mouth went dry. He pictured Earth's first big diplomatic meeting going wrong because someone was excited or proud or nervous, and the whole room felt it like a wave. Silari lifted her hand again, calm. But it can also heal, she added. Elias looked up. Heal? Silari's voice became quieter but clearer. Many species have trained themselves to reduce emotional output. Over generations, it became culture, then it became habit, then it became distance. We speak politely. We negotiate, we avoid conflict, but we also avoid closeness. She paused, choosing words. Humans, I am told, will watch a star and feel a longing so sharp it becomes poetry. You will see another being and feel wonder. You will hear a melody and weep openly. This is rare. Elias felt something stir in him, something like pride mixed with fear. He didn't want to be a dangerous animal to them. He didn't want to be a curiosity either. He wanted to be a person. "I guess we feel a lot," he said. Celari's gaze stayed steady. "Yes. And you share it without meaning, too. When you joked, you tried to soften your nervousness, but you also showed admiration." Elias rubbed his forehead. "I'm sorry if that's inappropriate." Celari's smile became a little playful. "It was surprising," she admitted. "But not inappropriate, not to me." Elias blinked. "Not to you?" Celari leaned back slightly, and the light from the table drew soft shadows along her jaw. "The Lyrian conquered values beauty," she said. "Not only appearance, beauty in thought, beauty in honesty. Beauty in small kindness. We study how perception shapes relationships." Elias swallowed. "Okay, that's actually kind of nice." A gentle hush settled over the ring. The other delegates listened but did not interrupt. Elias had the strange feeling that he had stumbled into something bigger than his job description. Celari continued. "However, there is concern among some members. They fear humans will overwhelm social spaces. They fear humans will create emotional dependency. They fear humans will accidentally cause distress." Elias winced. "We really know how to make an entrance." Celari's eyes softened. "You also know how to make someone feel less alone," she said. Elias looked at her carefully. "Have you felt alone?" Celari paused. For a fraction of a second, her confidence dimmed like a curtain shifting. Then she answered with diplomacy, but her tone carried something else underneath, something quiet. "Many diplomats do," she said. Elias didn't know what to say. So he did the only thing he could do when he had nothing clever. He spoke simply. "I'm sorry." The room changed again, not in a dramatic way, but the air seemed to settle like dust in sunlight. The delegate with floating rings made a soft humming sound that felt approving. The layered-voiced delegate lowered its gaze, respectful. Celari stared at Elias for a moment as if she had not expected that response. Then she nodded once. "Thank you," she said. Elias shifted in his seat. "So, what do you want from me?" Celari's smile returned, calmer now. "A demonstration," she said. "Not for spectacle, for understanding." Elias' heart picked up speed. "I don't really do magic tricks." Celari gave a small, almost human-like exhale that might have been a laugh. "No tricks, simply speak to me, tell me something true. Something small." Elias looked at the blue-lit table. He thought of Earth, the smell of street food, the sound of rain on apartment windows, the way his sister used to sing badly on purpose to make him laugh. He thought of the last night before he left when the sky above his city was cloudy and he couldn't see stars, but he knew they were there. He raised his eyes to Celari. "Okay," he said. "Something true." He took a slow breath. "I was scared to come here," he admitted. "I acted confident because that's my job, but I kept thinking, what if we don't belong? What if we're too messy, too loud, too human?" He expected the delegates to react badly. He expected judgment. Instead, Celari's expression softened into something openly gentle. The patterns on her cheeks glowed slightly, like fine ink warmed by sunlight. "You are messy," she said quietly. "You are loud, you are human, and you are here." Elias felt his eyes sting, and he blinked quickly, embarrassed. "Yeah," he whispered. "I guess I am." Celari's gaze stayed on him, steady and kind. "When you shared your fear," she said, "it did not harm the room, it brought clarity." Elias gave a small, shaky smile. "That's one way to put it." The station attendant near the doorway shifted, checking the tablet again. "Ambassador Celari," it said, "the central greeting will begin in 8 minutes." Celari nodded without looking away from Elias. "Understood." Then she turned back fully to him. "Human Mercer," she said, and her voice carried a formal weight now, like a door opening. "I request you for a private cultural exchange session after the ceremony. You will speak with me and with selected members of the Council of Harmony." Elias' throat tightened. That sounded important, also terrifying. He forced himself to nod. "Yes, I can do that." Celari studied him, then added, "You will not try to hide what you feel." Elias let out a nervous laugh again. "I'm not sure I even know how." Celari's smile turned bright, and her eyes held a quiet confidence that made Elias feel strangely safe. "Then you are exactly the right human," she said. As Elias stood to follow the attendant back toward the main hall, he felt the eyes of the other delegates on him. Not hostile, not mocking, curious, careful. As if they were watching a small sun rise and wondering whether it would warm them or burn them. He walked through the station with his heart beating fast, his mind spinning. He had come here thinking humanity's biggest advantage would be technology, or stubbornness, or creativity. He had never expected their strongest feature might be something as simple as feeling things deeply and letting it show. When he reached the edge of the central hall, he looked back once. Scifi was still seated for a moment, her attention on the floating symbols near the table, her face thoughtful. Then she looked up again, right at him, like she had been waiting. Elias didn't know how, but he felt that the galaxy had just noticed humanity in a new way. Not as a threat, not as a joke, as something it didn't understand yet. And that, he realized, could change everything. Elias Mercer stood near a wide window that looked out into the slow-moving stars. The ceremony had ended, and the main hall of the galactic welcome station had become quieter. Delegates drifted away in small groups, speaking in low tones. Some looked at Elias when they passed, not in a sharp way, more like they were trying to understand what kind of person he really was. He folded his hands behind his back to stop them from shaking. The private cultural exchange session was about to begin. An attendant approached him again, the same slender being with stone-like skin and glowing eyes. "This way, human Mercer," it said. Elias followed through a curved hallway that glowed softly along the floor. The walls showed slow-moving images of stars, oceans, and strange landscapes from worlds he had never seen. It felt less like a hallway and more like walking through a dream. They entered a smaller room, round and calm. The ceiling was low compared to the main hall, making it feel more personal, more human-sized. Seats were arranged in a loose circle, not a formal ring. A low table sat in the center, this one glowing with a warm, soft light instead of blue. Ambassador Scifi was already there. She stood near the table, her hands resting lightly on its edge. She looked different here, not less official but more real. Her posture was relaxed, and the faint patterns on her cheeks moved slowly like gentle waves. A few other delegates were present. Elias recognized the floating ring being and the layered-voiced delegate. There were two more he didn't know, both quiet, watching with careful eyes. Scifi turned when Elias entered. "You came," she said. Elias nodded. "I said I would." Her smile was small but genuine. "Sit." "Please." Elias chose a seat across from her again. The chair shaped itself to him, soft and steady. He took a breath, trying to calm his thoughts. Scifi looked around the room. "This is not a formal session," she said to everyone. "There will be no official record. No statements for history, only listening." One of the delegates made a soft sound of agreement. Another nodded slowly. Elias felt a small wave of relief. He didn't want to feel like a living document. Scifi turned her attention back to him. "Human Mercer, earlier you asked what I wanted from you. I will answer more clearly now." Elias leaned forward slightly. "Okay." She placed one hand flat on the glowing table. "Many species in this station communicate through layers, words, tone, gesture, context. But over time, most have learned to control or hide the deepest layer, feeling." Elias listened carefully. "We did this to avoid conflict," Scifi continued. "To avoid harm, to avoid being vulnerable, but something else happened. We stopped being close." The room felt quiet in a meaningful way, not an empty way. Elias spoke gently. "And you think humans can change that?" Scifi studied him. "I think humans remind us of something we forgot," she said. "What it feels like to be seen without effort." Elias rubbed the back of his neck. "We don't always mean to do that." "That may be why it matters," she replied. The floating ring delegate drifted closer, its rings turning slowly. "Your presence creates resonance," it said. "When you entered the council hall earlier, the emotional field shifted." Elias blinked. "Emotional field?" "Yes," it said. "Like temperature, but for feeling." Elias let out a small laugh. "So I'm basically a walking space heater for emotions." To his surprise, Scifi made a soft sound that was clearly laughter. It wasn't loud, but it was real. The patterns on her cheeks brightened slightly. "Something like that," she said. The layered-voiced delegate leaned forward. "This is both fascinating and concerning." Elias tilted his head. "Concerning how? Species have built entire cultures around emotional distance," it said. "Your openness could destabilize them." Elias' smile faded. "I don't want to hurt anyone." Scifi lifted her hand gently. "You are not a weapon," she said. "You are a mirror. Some fear what they will see." Elias thought about that, about people back on Earth who avoided honest conversations because they didn't want to face their own feelings, about how hard it was to look at yourself without filters. He spoke quietly. "We don't always like what we see either." Scifi's gaze softened. "Yet you keep looking." The session continued with questions, simple ones at first. What do humans value most? One delegate asked. Elias thought. It depends on the human, he said, but connection. I think we care a lot about connection. Family, friends, even strangers. We like knowing we're not alone. What do humans fear most? Another asked. Elias didn't answer right away. He felt the room waiting, not pushing. Being alone, he said finally, not just physically. Emotionally, being unseen. The floating ring being hummed softly, its rings glowing faintly. Silari asked, what do humans do when they are afraid? Elias smiled a little. We joke, we talk, we tell stories, we reach out. Sometimes we mess up, sometimes we hurt each other. But we keep trying. The delegates listened. No one interrupted. It felt like a circle around a small fire, everyone leaning in for warmth. Then Silari did something unexpected. She stood. She walked slowly to the center of the room where the light from the table was brightest. The patterns on her skin became more visible, like fine art under a spotlight. I will share something as well, she said. The room became very still. My species, the Lyrians, were once known for great emotional expression, she said. Our art was loud, our music was intense. Our relationships were deep and difficult. Elias watched her face carefully. Over time, we learned that strong emotions led to strong conflicts, she continued. So we softened ourselves, we taught our children to control, to filter, to be careful. We became excellent diplomats, excellent negotiators, she paused, and very lonely. Elias felt something heavy in his chest. When you looked at me earlier, Silari said, her voice quieter now, and your unspoken admiration reached me, it surprised me. Not because of what it was, but because I had forgotten what it felt like to receive something without calculation. Elias swallowed. I didn't mean to make you uncomfortable. You didn't, she said. You reminded me of something. She returned to her seat, moving slowly, thoughtfully. The layered-voiced delegate spoke again. If humans join the wider network fully, emotional exposure may increase across all member species. Elias looked at it. Is that bad? The delegate hesitated. It is unknown. Silari leaned forward. Unknown does not mean harmful, she said. It means we must be careful and open. Elias nodded. We're good at careful and we're very good at open. A small smile touched her lips. The session continued for a long time. They talked about human music, how certain sounds could make people cry or feel brave. Elias described sunsets over oceans, how the sky could turn orange and pink and purple all at once, and how people would stop walking just to stare. He talked about how humans wrote stories about stars before they ever reached them, about how children would look up at the night sky and feel like something out there was waiting. The delegates listened closely. Some of them leaned forward without realizing it. At one point, the floating ring being asked, do humans feel this way about us? Elias blinked. Feel what way? Curious, hopeful, interested, it said. Elias smiled. Yeah, definitely. We've been wondering who else was out there for a long time. Meeting you all is like finding out the universe is bigger than we ever imagined. Silari's eyes brightened at that. The layered-voiced delegate was quieter now, less guarded. Your species does not approach the unknown with only caution, it said. You approach it with wonder. Elias shrugged slightly. We're not always brave, but we're usually curious. Time passed without Elias noticing. The soft light in the room shifted slightly, marking hours instead of minutes. Finally, the station attendant appeared at the doorway. Ambassador Silari, it said, the session window is closing. Silari nodded. Thank you, she turned to Elias. You have done something important today, she said. Elias stood slowly. I just talked. Yes, she replied, and that is what makes it important. The other delegates rose as well, the floating ring being drifted closer to Elias. You make silence feel less empty, it said. Elias wasn't sure how to respond to that, so he simply said, thank you. As they left the room, Elias felt lighter and heavier at the same time. Lighter because he had been understood, heavier because he realized how much responsibility came with being himself in a place like this. Silari walked beside him down the glowing hallway. There will be reactions to this session, she said. Some positive, some cautious. Some fearful, Elias nodded. That sounds about right, she looked at him. Will humans change how they are to make others comfortable? Elias thought about Earth. About protests and celebrations, arguments and hugs, loud laughter and quiet tears. I don't think we really know how to be anything else, he said. Silari considered that, then she smiled. Then the galaxy will have to learn how to be with you. They reached a wide window that showed a slow spiral of stars outside. They both stopped looking out at it. Elias spoke softly. "It's beautiful." Selari didn't respond right away. She watched his face instead of the stars. "Yes," she said, "it is." But this time, Elias wasn't sure if she meant the galaxy. He stood there, a human in a room built for 100 species, feeling the quiet weight of something new beginning. He didn't know what would come next: alliances, misunderstandings, friendships, or mistakes. He only knew that humanity had just opened a door that couldn't be closed. And on the other side of that door, the galaxy was waiting. Elias Mercer did not sleep much that night. His room on the station was quiet, too quiet. The walls were smooth and pale, and the light dimmed itself when it sensed he was lying down. Outside the wide window, stars drifted past like slow thoughts. The station moved gently, almost like it was breathing. Elias lay on his back, hands resting on his chest, staring at the ceiling. His mind kept replaying the session with Selari and the other delegates, the way they had leaned in, the way their voices had softened, the way the room had felt warmer without the temperature changing. He had not planned any of it, he had not prepared a speech, he had just been honest, and somehow that had mattered. In the early cycle hours, his communicator chimed softly. Elias sat up, heart jumping. He touched the small device on his wrist. A message appeared in simple glowing text. "Human Mercer, you are requested at the council chamber." The sender was Ambassador Selari. Elias sighed and stood, running a hand through his hair. "Guess this is happening," he muttered to the empty room. He dressed quickly and stepped into the hallway. The station was more active now. Beings of many shapes and sizes moved with purpose. Soft voices filled the air. Drones floated past carrying small packages of light and metal. Elias felt eyes on him again, not curious this time. Thoughtful, the council chamber was larger than any room he had been in before. It was shaped like a wide circle, with high curved walls covered in shifting symbols. The ceiling showed a moving image of space, like a window into the real sky beyond the station. Delegates filled the chamber, dozens of species seated in rings that rose like gentle steps. Elias felt very small. Selari stood near the center. When she saw him, she gave a small nod, not formal, reassuring. An attendant guided Elias to a simple platform beside her. No seat. Just space to stand. A deep, calm voice filled the chamber. "The session will begin." The layered-voiced delegate from before spoke, but now its sound carried power. "We gather to discuss the impact of humanity's integration into the emotional network of the station." Elias blinked. Emotional network. Selari leaned slightly toward him and whispered, "Your presence affects more than just this room." Elias whispered back, "That's a little terrifying." She smiled faintly. The delegate continued. "Since the arrival of human Mercer in the public halls, multiple species have reported unusual emotional responses. Increased reflection, increased memory recall, increased social engagement." Soft murmurs moved through the chamber. Elias shifted his weight, feeling like a test subject. A tall being with smooth, silver skin rose. "My people have avoided shared memory rituals for centuries," it said. "Yesterday, 3 of our elders requested to speak with humans about their past." Another delegate stood, this one made of soft light and shadow. "Our young have begun telling stories again. We thought the tradition was fading." Elias felt his chest tighten. Selari stepped forward. "These changes were not directed," she said. "They emerged from simple interaction." The layered-voiced delegate turned its focus toward Elias. "Human Mercer, do you understand what you are doing?" Elias swallowed. The chamber was silent now. Every eye, every sense, every strange form of attention was on him. "I don't think I'm doing anything special," Elias said carefully. "I'm just talking, listening, being myself." "Yourself is the variable," the delegate replied. Elias took a breath. He remembered the small room, the warm light, the feeling of being around a fire. He spoke again. "Where I come from, we believe that if you really want to understand someone, you don't start with what they can give you. You start with who they are." The silver-skin being tilted its head. "And what if who they are is dangerous?" Elias thought about anger, fear, history. Mistakes humans had made. "Then you listen even more carefully," he said, "because danger usually comes from not being heard." A low sound passed through the chamber. Not a word, not a sound of agreement or disagreement, just recognition. Selari watched Elias closely. Her expression was steady, but her eyes were bright. The layered-voiced delegate spoke again. Some members fear emotional dependence, that other species may begin to rely on humans for connection. Elias nodded. That wouldn't be healthy. We don't want to replace anyone's way of being, we just want to share. How? Asked the Shadow and Light delegate. Elias hesitated. He hadn't planned for this. Then he remembered the story about the sky, about wanting someone else to see it. He spoke slowly. We don't teach by telling, we teach by showing. If someone sees us care, they might remember how to care in their own way. Silari stepped closer to him now, standing side by side. Humans do not carry a single method, she said to the chamber. They carry an invitation. The word seemed to hang in the air. A small being near the front raised a limb made of fine threads. An invitation to what? Silari looked at Elias. Elias answered, to feel without being ashamed of it. The chamber fell silent again, then something unexpected happened. A delegate in the second ring stood. It was a tall, narrow being with dark, smooth skin and eyes like faint stars. My species left our home world behind after it became uninhabitable, it said. We do not speak of it. We do not remember it publicly. Yesterday, a human technician told me about the place they grew up, about a river that no longer exists. Its voice faltered. I dreamed of my world for the first time in 200 cycles, it said. The chamber did not move. No one interrupted. The delegate sat down slowly. Elias felt his throat tighten. The layered-voiced delegate finally said, these effects cannot be ignored. Silari nodded. Then let us guide them instead of fearing them. The chamber began to fill with quiet discussion. Delegates spoke in low tones. Some looked thoughtful. Some looked unsure. Some looked hopeful. Elias stood still, feeling like he was standing in the center of a turning galaxy. After a long moment, a calm, deep tone filled the room again. We will conduct a trial. The layered-voiced delegate spoke clearly. A structured exchange program. Humans will be invited to participate in cultural and emotional sessions with willing member species. Observation will be continuous. Silari's eyes widened slightly. Elias blinked. Wait, what? The delegate continued. If the effects are beneficial, the program will expand. If harmful, it will end. Silari turned to Elias. This is bigger than just you now. Elias nodded slowly. I figured it might be. The chamber began to empty after the decision. Delegates left in thoughtful silence. Silari and Elias remained near the platform. You did not plan this, she said. Elias let out a small laugh. I barely planned breakfast, she smiled. And yet you changed a room full of ancient civilizations. I don't think I did, he said. I think they changed themselves. They walked out of the chamber together. The hallway beyond was filled with soft light and distant voices. Elias felt tired, but in a good way, like after a long conversation that mattered. Are you ready for what comes next? Silari asked. Elias thought about humans traveling to alien worlds, sitting with strangers, sharing stories, listening to memories, laughing in places no human had ever been before. No, he said honestly, but I don't think we ever are, Silari nodded. That may be another human trait. They stopped near a large window again. The stars beyond seemed closer now, brighter. A group of delegates stood nearby, watching them, not with suspicion, with curiosity. One of them stepped forward, a small being with glowing markings along its arms. Human Mercer, it said softly. May I ask you something? Elias smiled. Of course. What do humans do when they stand in front of something very big? It asked. Something they do not fully understand? Elias looked at the stars. We usually get quiet, he said. Then we start asking questions. The being tilted its head. May I stand with you? Elias nodded. Yeah, I'd like that. Silari watched them both, her expression gentle. More beings slowly joined near the window. No one spoke. They simply stood together, looking out at the galaxy. Different shapes, different worlds, one shared moment. Elias felt it again, that warm, quiet feeling, like being part of something without needing to own it. He realized then that humanity's role here wasn't to lead. It was to stand in the dark with others and say, look, isn't this something? And for the first time, the galaxy didn't look away. It looked back. Elias Mercer stood on the observation deck and watched the first human exchange ship leave the station. It was not a large ship. It did not carry weapons or heavy machines. It carried people, teachers, artists, engineers, storytellers, listeners, ordinary humans who had volunteered to travel to worlds they had only seen on screens. The ship drifted forward, its lights blinking softly like a slow heartbeat. When it passed through the station's outer shield and into open space, a quiet cheer rose from the deck. Elias did not cheer. He felt something deeper, something slow and steady, like watching a child take their first step away from home. Beside him, Ambassador Celari stood with her hands folded in front of her. The patterns on her cheeks moved gently, reflecting the light of the stars. "They are brave," she said. Elias nodded. "They don't always feel brave, but they go anyway." The exchange program had grown quickly, faster than anyone expected. Some species had been cautious, but others had stepped forward almost immediately. They wanted humans to visit their cities, sit in their homes, listen to their stories, not as diplomats, not as negotiators. As guests, Elias had helped choose the first group. He had talked to every volunteer, not as an official, but as a person. He had asked simple questions. Why do you want to go? Most answers were not about science or history. They were about curiosity, about wonder. About wanting to understand someone who lived under a different sky. Celari turned to him. "The council has given humans a name." Elias blinked. "Oh, that sounds serious." "It is meant with respect," she said. "They call you the beautiful ones." Elias let out a soft laugh. "We're really not that great to look at," Celari smiled. "It is not about how you look." He understood. They walked along the deck together. Beings of many kinds stood near the wide windows. Some talked quietly. Some simply watched the stars. A small child from a species with soft, glowing skin tugged gently at Elias' sleeve. Elias knelt down without thinking. "Are you a human?" the child asked in a voice that the translator turned into simple words. "I am," Elias said. The child studied his face closely. "My teacher says humans carry warm feelings." Elias smiled. "We try to." The child nodded, satisfied, and ran back to its group. Elias stood and looked at Celari. "We're becoming a story," she nodded. "All species are stories. Yours is just being read for the first time." Over the next cycles, the station changed. Not in big, dramatic ways, but in small ones. Rooms designed only for meetings became rooms for sharing. Delegates began bringing personal items instead of formal symbols. A being from a water world built a small pool and invited humans to sit by it and listen to songs made with ripples instead of sound. Humans told stories in return, about mountains, about storms, about falling in love and losing people and finding hope again in small places. Elias walked through these spaces like someone moving through a garden that had not existed before. One day, he found Celari sitting alone near a window that showed a distant, soft blue planet. "You come here often," he said gently. She nodded. "It reminds me of my home world." "Have you been back?" he asked. She shook her head. "Not in many cycles." Elias leaned against the railing beside her. "Why not?" Celari was quiet for a moment. "Because I am not sure I remember how to be there," she said. Elias frowned slightly. "What do you mean?" "My world values tradition," she explained. "Structure, control. I have changed since meeting humans. I feel more, I show more. I am not sure how my people will see that." Elias thought about his own home. About how people changed when they left and how sometimes going back felt harder than leaving. "Maybe they'll see you," he said. "Not just who you were." Celari looked at him. "That is a very human thing to say," he smiled. "I'm pretty good at those." A message chimed softly on Elias' communicator. He checked it and raised his eyebrows. "What is it?" Celari asked. "The first exchange group just sent a report," he said. "They arrived on a world called Terrales." "And?" she asked. Elias read silently, then looked up, his face bright. "They say the people there built a public gathering space just for talking. No trade, no politics, just sitting together." Celari's eyes softened. "That is a beginning." As time passed, stories came in from many worlds. On one planet, humans and locals planted trees together to create a shared park. On another, they created a library of memories where beings recorded their life stories in sound, light, and images. Not everything was perfect. There were misunderstandings, awkward moments. Times when humans said too much or when others pulled away. But people kept coming back. Elias became something like a guide, not for travel, but for feeling. When problems came, he did not offer rules. He offered conversations. One day, the layered-voiced delegate approached him. "You have changed the function of this station," it said. Elias tilted his head. "Good or bad?" The delegate paused. "Different," it said. "We once believed stability came from distance. Now we see it can also come from connection." Elias smiled. "We're still learning that ourselves." Celari joined them. "The council has voted," she said. Elias' stomach tightened. "That sounds important." "It is," she said. "The exchange program will become permanent." Humans will have a standing place in the Harmony Network. Elias let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. That means, Silari continued, humans will not just visit, they will belong. Elias looked around the station. At the different beings talking, laughing, sitting quietly together. Feels like we already do, he said. Later, Elias stood alone in a quiet hallway. The lights were dim and the station hummed softly around him. He thought about how it had started. A nervous joke, a smile. A moment of being seen, Silari approached, her steps light. You look tired, she said. Good tired, Elias replied, like after a long day with friends. She stood beside him. You will not always be here, she said. Humans will take your place, many of them. Elias nodded. That's the idea, she hesitated. And you? He looked at her. I don't know yet. Silari's voice was gentle. Wherever you go, you will carry this with you. Elias smiled. Yeah, I think I will. They walked to the main observation window one last time. The galaxy stretched out before them, bright, dark, endless. Elias spoke softly. When humans first looked at the stars, we didn't know if anyone was out there. We just hoped. Silari looked at the stars, then at him. And now we know, he said. And it's better than we imagined. Silari's smile was quiet and warm. They stood together in silence, not an empty silence, but a full one. Around them the station moved. Ships arrived, ships departed. Voices rose and fell, lives crossed and continued. Somewhere out there, humans were sitting under alien skies, telling stories. Somewhere else, alien children were asking questions about Earth. The galaxy was not just a place anymore. It was a conversation. And in that conversation, humanity had found its voice, not loud. Not commanding, just honest. And the universe at last was listening.